TPM አፍደገ ዘመናዊ ትግራይ
The welcoming ululations of Tigrayan mothers of each child have not yet faded. And await the eventual end for
The Wayana is a cancer.
the 3 divisions of the Eritrean army. Thousands of Somalian soldiers who were trained in Eritrea, as well as Emirati drones, were mobilized in 5 directions.
The daytime high.
In Setit Humara, hundreds of Tigrayan civilians whose legs and arms were tied up south of Aksum, unarmed young people were forcibly taken in mass from their homes.
The killings were done without investigation. This is what happened then. I saw this in my own eyes.
The Abiy soldiers who committed the crimes were heard saying, and mocked at them, "There is gold in your womb."
He ordered me to give him gold.
I killed 20. I raped 5.
Tigrayan women have been raped by Eritrean bloodthirsty invaders. Even elderly nuns in their 80s have been raped.
Ethiopians killing Ethiopians.
These little ones have not yet begun to test the value of life. They have not yet lived an ounce of the expected lifetime. The welcoming ululations of Tigrayan mothers of each child have not yet faded. They are too young to know what is right and what is wrong. Even so, they were made to suffer shortly after they were born and just begun to live. They were made to suffer from hunger when they were expected to be fed and cared. They are exposed to death and await the eventual end for no mistake of their own making. Mothers who are solemnly praying for a good day spend their days in the churches that are often found in the mountains. Their prayers for salvation in solis echo far and wide and soar high onto the skies.
Stop the mass arrest of Tigrayans! Right now! Stop filling Tagaru in Addis Ababa! Right now!
Eritrea is guilty of Tigray genocide! Eritrea is guilty of Tigray genocide! Amhara led to the ICC!
When there was barely anything elsewhere during the biblical times, Tigrayans, as the owners of the great kingdoms of the world, in their backyard were actively molding their future.
The people of Tigray had one of the four great kingdoms of the world. Aksumite kingdom is ranked along with the ancient kingdoms of Rome, Persia, and China. Tigray is the only African state with its own alphabet, history, literature, and polyphony.
Tigrayans, who had long established rules before biblical times, are the people to whom both the Old and the New Testaments have been preached. The ancient kingdom became stronger after receiving Christianity. The kingdom welcomed asylum seekers from Mecca as early as the 7th century. Tigrayans are known for their hospitality, inculcating beliefs and enacting rule of law and practicing tolerance.
During the period of the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet knew about Tigray. Why didn't he send the followers elsewhere? It's because we don't harm others.
Tigrayans have effectively obliterated the shackles of the backward feudal system as well as the fascist military council, otherwise Derg, that was believed to have the #1 army in Africa. By so doing, it was able to destroy the system that oppresses its people, thereby establishing the system which enshrines nations and nationalities with values of liberty and democratic unity. Tigrayans have repeatedly paid sacrifice and played a big role in adapting a constitution that ensures its self-determination as well as the rights of other Ethiopians based on the principles of diversity and multinationalism. They have played a big role in establishing a federal democratic system which is based on a multi-party system and practice of rule of law. When the country plunged into a quagmire of poverty and ignorance and was suffering a lot due to the fascists and the plump and the gallant Tigrayans came to its rescue. They galvanized the public to pull the country out of the ditch and embark it on a path of progress and civilization. In order to wipe out Tigray from the map of the world and annihilate its hard-working people, a package of destruction was carefully designed. As part of applying the first phase of the genocidal campaign, massive hate speech and declarations aiming at destruction of Tigrayans began to be deliberately spread. Particularly, starting in 2015, confidence and respect for Tigrayans were highly compromised. Different bad labels were used in an attempt to degrade and demonize Tigrayans. The national identity was seen as a curse, and many despicable things have been made to make Tigrayans feel humiliated as a result of their identity.
The Wayana is a cancer. We need to carry out a program to systematically destroy every Wayana.
This is 5 million against 95 million. The only way to eradicate the spoiled fish is to cleanse the seawater.
Tigray's population is 6 million. Amhara's population is around 30 million. If we probably assign 6 million to Tigray, the rest of the people can be free.
From now onwards, we need to always use the group as a horrific example and frighten our children.
Mobilization to carry out destruction of people, a genocidal campaign that is organized and led by the expansionist elites, scholars, politicians, artists, athletes, religious leaders, investors, military leaders, the leadership group of fascist Abiy, the Amhara region, and the state of authoritarian leader Isaias. The instigation was done repeatedly and continuously by state-led media and the online media sponsored by the fascist Abiy's group.
How on earth can we show any sympathy to this? Why should we keep on saying they are Ethiopians, our citizens? It's unacceptable. Never. They are not.
Since they are worse than the Satan himself, it's not necessary to fear this bunch of people.
As a result, all roads leading to Tigray from the capital were closed.
We have formed Fano, irregular Amhara militias. As Fano, as Amhara, we have been doing different things. We have been blocking the road to Tigray. This is plain fact. I am just disclosing this now.
Goods and consumables were prevented from entering Tigray. Foreign investors were stopped and forced to return from the airport. Infrastructure came to a standstill. Tigrayans who were working at the government offices and posted in Addis and federal agencies were either fired or imprisoned. A deliberate decision was made to destroy the people of Tigray by refusing to send drugs for the prevention of COVID-19, face masks to school children, anti-desert locust sprays, as well as the yearly budget. Such acts became normal and everyday occurrences. In order to practically apply the malicious hate speech that was spread openly, a war was declared in the name of law enforcement in order to annihilate Tigray.
The government is forced to take a decisive measure against carrying out a sham election.
The main snake must be hit with a bullet. Enough. This is a current decree.
We are requesting if you can have the permission. Otherwise, Tigray is nothing to us. We will squash it.
At that time, the Tigrayan clergy and the laity, in their best attire, wearing the white traditional clothes symbolizing Noah's dove in looks and intent, were singing a song of peace.
Before our country, Ethiopia, heads to an endless chaos and destruction, the people and government of Tigray call on all to denounce the violations and struggle together against those who are violating the constitution.
There is كل عينة متقعتي
United with all the nations and nationalities, we need to struggle to ensure peace and order, renew our system, and continue with our plans.
Including recruits, 16 divisions, tens of thousands of special forces and militia, about 200,000 Abiy Ahmed's armed group, ground soldiers, along with full mechanized and air force of the country, thousands of special forces of the regional states.
The special forces of Somalia, Dabub, Gambela, Benshangul, Sidama, as well as the militia and special forces of Oromia from the whole Ethiopia are here, participating in the war.
43 divisions of the Eritrean army. Thousands of Somalian soldiers who were trained in Eritrea, as well as Emirati drones, were mobilized in 5 directions. They did so against the peace-loving Tigrayans, who had been sweating using their knowledge and resources and fully engaged in the fight against poverty. The forces came in mass in all directions to obliterate Tigray and Tigrayans. The operation that was waged to annihilate Tigrayans mainly aimed at targeting civilian populations and public institutions. The crimes were deliberately and mercilessly executed end to end. From Humara in the west to Alamata in the southeast, from Rama, north central, and Europe further northeast, to Naksaga in the south. All the venomous hate speech and manies had been practically carried out by the book on civilians across Tigray.
The daytime highness, which wish to eat us.
He is right when he said highness. Here is what I want to tell Dr. Abiy. There is an old saying, instead of being eaten by a hyena, eat it and be blessed. Let's eat them and be blessed. We will be blessed.
So that such people are not created in this country again, are not imagined again whatsoever. They need to be removed from humankind's psyche and thoughts, from history, books. They must be erased once and for all.
We need eternal separations from these people.
The Quran says, Ashagul Fil, which means children of Abraham. The children of Abraham are nowhere else. They are Tigray. They are not created from humankind. In fact, I think the devil is better than them.
Traitors from Satan's palace. These people are chief of Satan and beasts.
As they are Satans from hell, they must not live like humans on earth. We must not allow them to live like humans. We must take them back to hell.
Lastly, Biafra is made a crime in Nigeria. Just using the word Biafra is a crime. Most probably, the Ethiopian government can criminalize the word Tigray. Probably can divide into 4 or 5 regions or get it administered in the form of zones. By so doing, the government needs to completely revise or revisit the crime enterprise region, starting with its nomenclature or naming.
Revisit ማድረግ ስለሚያስፈልግ
In November 2020, in Maikadra, southwest of Humara, Hundreds of Tigrayans were profiled and handpicked by checking their IDs, and names were massacred by the fascist Abiy group and the Amhara Fano, a militia. Many were buried alive in mass grave.
To say Tigrayan was difficult. If you say I'm Tigrayan, you would be fired at.
The students were completely finished. They killed them as they ran. Well, what can be done?
One of the generals ordered the killing, saying, "Leave no Tigrayan alive." He did this riding his cart around.
My husband came to his kids, and the Amharas found and killed him. They were our neighbors.
I had a brother called Aragawi, who was also my neighbor. They killed and burned the body. They also burnt a priest at a church.
An 85-year-old man named Abu Fano. In my card I told them, I'm an old man, I'm unable to do anything. They beheaded him.
They were carrying knives, daggers, and guns. He pulled his rifle and hit me here. They stabbed me here, my neck, to check if I was alive or not.
After about 3 days of massacre, it was relatively calmer. Then a monk wearing yellow clothes came by and ordered the Amhara armed forces. Let not a Tigrayan sit next to you. It's like putting a snake in your pocket. Thus, there's no mercy to Tigray. Following this, another wave of merciless killing continued.
Everyone was exposed to misery. It was just shooting after shooting.
Whoever tried to run away, or even to the cereals, young or an adult, was gunned down.
Worst of all, they dragged the bodies of civilians using vehicles.
More than 100 civilians I know were killed. In general, about 400 were killed.
In my own eyes, I saw when they stoned a person to death. Killing using a bullet is relatively dignified. They just killed using stones and daggers, sawing and asking one another, is he dead?
Civilians were slaughtered like goats. I know a person called Tesfaye Matuku who was grounded for days because they intentionally did not finish him. There was no one to help him.
For the first time in our lives, humans, Tigrayans were cut off, like heads of sorghum, using machetes, knives, and daggers.
No Tigrayan is left. All are killed.
Oh, we do not have anything left.
First, they took our livestock. Then, they took our homes. They put the label, Yamara Beit, Amhara's house. They are from other places.
In Setit Humara, hundreds of Tigrayan civilians, whose legs and arms were tied up, were dumped in the Tekeze River. After days or weeks, some of the bodies were found in the river banks of Tekeze by Sudanese fishermen.
We just got a call that 3 bodies were found down at the riverfront, so we're running down to see what we can see. From the binds still biting into his skin, it's clear this man suffered a tortured death.
In November 2020, Christian pilgrims from all over Tigray congregated to celebrate the yearly holiday of Tigricide in the holy city of Aksum. Sadly, more than 1,000 civilians were barbarically massacred, including those who sought refuge within the compound of the sacred site. Most were residents taken from their homes by the invading army of the chauvinist Eritrean leader, Isaias.
This is just barbarism. A person who believes in the existence of God or of the existence of sin or good doesn't do this.
Particularly on November 28 of 2020, many people kept on dying the whole day from the morning till 7 p.m. in the evening.
How can one simply kill a 13-year-old boy? A 13-year-old boy. A 13-year-old boy. This has never been heard or seen.
The Sha'biya forces were on the street. They hit my leg, and I fell and pretended to be dead. 6 were killed nearby, including teacher Yitbarek's son.
Bodies were everywhere. Threshing floors, homes, streets, entrances. Wherever you go, you just get bodies. Humans feel like leaves.
Let that day be not repeated.
Nuns who held up chastity, virginity all their lives and who chose to lead such a righteous life were gang raped by 2, 3, 4, 5.
These are artificial. I lost both my eyes when I was hit. The bullet went in and went out through this.
My husband, Gerla Semraj, and 2 of my sons, Mabratom and Kibrom, were killed. What's left? 3 of them.
My son, who is called Mabrahtu, was told that I was hit, while he and 2 others, Bitwaddad and Shishai, were looking for me. They stopped and killed them all near the theater hall.
So many priests had been killed.
Our commanders used to bring people for us to kill. We did. In my presence, we gunned down about 10 persons.
It is not easy to count the number of people who were killed in Aksum. Aksumites were not the only ones who were killed. Many people had come from other places on foot and by cars to attend the ceremony. The troops went around the church and killed anyone they found.
Tigricide, the celebration of Saint Mary of Zion, was never like this.
When we say 1,000 or 1,200, we were only referring to those whose bodies were found.
What we know are those who were buried here, but it's impossible to count those who had been killed. Many were eaten by hyenas.
That day, that's a nightmare day. The hyena, oh my God. Hyena eat it. Hyena eat it, oxen people body.
When a dog barks, it frightens you. But these are odd. They don't ask you this or that. They just come and kill anyone they get.
We've never heard of this. We've never seen such thing either. It's just very difficult. Very difficult. Difficult to talk about it.
What can be done? What can be done? Sha'biya came, ate us, and left likely a deadly insect. What can be done?
These are murderers. Let God, the Holy Savior, not show us these people.
Let not such thing befall those who are created, born.
Tigrayans have been informing the international community about the crimes of genocide being committed. Likewise, non-Tigrayans who stand for justice and human rights activists have been voicing the same message loudly and clearly to the world.
Dozens of protesters from the Ethiopian American community gathering to call on lawmakers to step in and end a year-long genocide in their country.
There is a genocide happening in Tigray.
Congressman Brad Sherman recently tweeted, "What's unfolding in Ethiopia has all the makings of a genocide. We cannot wait for this to become another Rwanda before we take action."
How long will it take before we react? How long before we actually start speaking the truth about what's really happening in Ethiopia?
The eyes of the world are not on Tigray as they should be.
Despite such calls, the international community kept silent and refrained from taking any concrete measures. As a result, the invaders fiercely kept on their spiteful hate speech and massacre of Tigrayans.
These people are the enemy of all Ethiopians. These people are the enemy of the Oromo. They are the enemy of Afar. They are the enemy of Gambela. They are the enemy of the Somali.
When I met the Ethiopian leadership in February, they really used this kind of language that they are going to destroy the Tigrayans, they are going to wipe out the Tigrayans for 100 years.
For example, there is an island called Tasmania, south of Australia. They destroyed the Tasmanian clans till one person was left. Only one person was left. They destroyed them all. Why do we need to try to understand these creatures? If you go away from them, they won't. Likewise, the only way is to eliminate them.
If a person speaks Tigrinya, he should be kept away. We don't want them to be here.
We have agreed to eliminate all Tigrayans who lived in the city of Desi and the Amhara region. Why? That's because they are snakes like their parents.
They have said they should not spare anyone. If you label them as snakes, the only thing you have to do is to eradicate them.
In common sense, everyone has understood that the word junta meant any Tigrayan.
There are more than 70,000 junta people in this city, does say itself. There are junta, including those who had been displaced with our citizens, as well as those who were born and raised here. I was born in this city. How do we differentiate the junta? We have done it using language. The only way to distinguish them is using struggle and guns.
Once and for all, we will take this group to the grave. Once and for all, it will go down to hell and be burnt there.
We will show no mercy to any person. It can be in the cities.
It is not enough to kill this cursed group and die. It is better to roast and eat their flesh like a goat.
They did so by overwhelming the world with a series of lies and fake news.
Extreme care has been made regarding civilian damage. Unlike in any battle in the world, the defense force has not killed a single person in 3 weeks in any city. In Tigray, no soldier of any country can be more efficient than this.
In Mahbar Degu, south of Aksum, unarmed young people were forcibly taken in mass from their homes and killed point blank and pushed down edges of cliffs or set on fire. The sites were strewn with bodies for weeks, and the latter were left to the satisfaction of eagles and wild animals.
They gathered the youth house after house search and took them to the hill above. Later they brought them down here and killed them all.
Those who were killed in Mahbar Dego were people from all walks of life, no fighters. The killings were done without investigation. This is what happened then. I saw this in my own eyes.
My 2 sons, a doctor and teacher, were killed. One was reading a religious book while looking after the cattle. He was taken from the spot. The doctor was taken from his home. There was an order to find and kill every young person.
አንበሳ ጀግና ነሽ ጀግና መጨረሻችሁ ይሄ ነው። ነዳጅ ቢኖር አሪፍ ነበር። እነዚህ
IDPs who managed to escape from the jaws of death in western Tigray were cruelly murdered at Shu'at Hugum. They did not get the chance to rest and reflect on their ordeals. The bodies were set on fire. The Abiy soldiers who committed the crimes were heard saying,
"This is minimal."
No remorse whatsoever. They were not content with their actions at all. At the church of Mariam Danglet, southwest of Dagahamus, priests, deacons, the choir, and the laity who were carrying out and attending the yearly religious ceremony of St. Mary were dragged out of the shrine by the invaders. They were savagely killed within the church's compound.
My friends and I came to the church for prayers. Unfortunately, the Eritrean troops were here.
They dropped them down like leaves after they finished their prayers.
My son was a member of the choir. He spent the night at the church. He was savagely killed by the Sha'biya troops on his way home.
The order from the command was not to spare any Tigrayan alive. As our commanders traveled with us, we were bound to kill anyone found in the way.
I was tied with this rope. It was hit here. We, along with others, were ordered to lie down. One stood here pointing his gun at us, lest we move, and ordered the other one to shoot us all. He shot us all. I was hit here and here. Then he ridiculed his comrade, saying, "Stop it, you can't even shout." Then he himself shot every one of us. Lastly, his bullet pierced my skin and made its way out this way. He left me thinking I was dead. Then he brought others and killed them at that spot. The Sha'biya troops are heartless, except my friend and I. The others were members of a choir. They told them so by showing their holy books. Is it right to kill such people? We were hoping that, as they are troops, they would spare the girls or would not be mean to them. But 3 girls who had been with me were murdered here.
We found the bodies of 3 teenage girls called Eden, Burtukan, Erdiordonis, members of the choir, along with many other boys. Each girl had placed the book Psalms on their chest, face down. We rushed to bury them all.
I was crying, going about the streets, and returned home. My neighbors stopped and asked why. I told them that my son was killed, and I was looking for the other one. Has he come here? I asked. I was then told both were killed. I burst into tears. They were university students.
Some of the body parts of the victims were torn apart, nowhere to be found.
All are my friends. I know that why shows. It's my friend's one. I know the name of my friends just by looking at the shoes.
They have decimated our religious leaders who had been serving and leading us all.
The Eritrean invaders mercilessly killed our brothers and sisters.
The Eritrean troops tied up our brothers' arms and ordered them to face one another. Then they would say, "Look," and shoot them.
In Bora, a large number of civilians were massacred on the same day while on their way to celebrate Christmas with their families. An entire family and their neighbor were among those exterminated in the district. In Sambra, 50 kilometers south of Mekelle, and Adi Asher near Gidget, many civilians, including 2-year-old child, were shot dead by the fascist Ethiopian troops.
Among the children from this neighborhood, one had a Tigrigna speaker mother. They have buried a junta, but he was just a 5 or 6-year-old Tigrigna speaker who was buried up to his neck.
My eldest son is called Hagus Abraha, the other one is called Tesfakiros Abraha, and the third one is called Hailu Abraha. My nephews are called Gabra Meskel Getahun and Gabra Yohannes Hailumare. These are all mine, including my eldest son's wife. They killed all these 6 family members in one late morning.
They say, we will destroy Tigray by killing every child, youth and adult. Destroy them. You need to destroy the entire ethnic group, each one of them. Accordingly, many have been killed.
In Gidget, many civilians were reduced to ashes due to the air raids and dropped the banned white phosphorus. In the Gororo area, west of Abiati, civilians were handcuffed and damned alive in a toilet pit. In March 2021, in Naksaga, scores of civilians, including elderly persons, were shot dead in their homes by the troops of the Ethiopian fascist group and the dictatorial regime of Isaias.
They shot his chest twice. He did not fall immediately. He then said, and fell. I spent that night soaked in my brother's blood.
In Adugutam, 40 kilometers southeast of Mekelle, more than 12 youngsters were stoned to death by fascist Abiy's troops as they were taking a pregnant woman on a stretcher to a hospital. The woman was thrown away. The confessions of the fascist Abiy Ahmed's captured troops regarding the brutal acts they committed at Walla Tambin and Wukra Arato speak volumes.
This is the place where they were killed. They knelt here, facing that hollow space, and they were killed from this side. I also killed one. He was hit twice, his back and his head.
I had seen while the body was made to burn. This is the spot. When the bodies were being burned, some kept on saying, 9 is nothing. It's very small. I was also one of them. I was there.
They were brought from Wukro after a house-to-house search to this camp at Arato. They were tied backwards and stayed here for 2-3 days. They were in very sad situation. Their hands were badly swollen. They suffered a lot. After 3 days, they were killed here. We were asked to dig a hole. We were many of us. It was a long hole.
In short, the aggressors have trampled every part of Tigray.
My wife and my kids, including a newborn girl, were shot down and killed. The newborn was only 30 days old, not baptized. The others were 2, 3, 5, and 29 years old. They shot them using different guns.
His 2 children, 3 children of my daughter, another 3 children of my second daughter, 2 grandchildren, my daughter-in-law, my brother along with 2 family members as well as my daughter. All in all, 17 were murdered by Sha'biya. They fled and were away for a couple of days. They were hungry and came back on the eve of St. Michael's. All were here. Then Sha'biya came, took them out, and killed them right here. All of them.
Six Muslims were shot to death by Eritrean troops. Do you just kill people who happen to be around without asking, investigating?
I found our door pierced by a bullet. I then pushed the door open and went in. I found 3 bodies on the floor.
We were prevented from covering the bodies. They were eaten by vultures.
The Ethiopian troops took people from their homes, took them outside, and murdered them. They did this despite being told that they were farmers and have nothing. They refused to check ID cards, and in fact, kept on saying, "Do not talk to us, just go out."
We told them that we are farmers. They said, "You're not farmers." Again, we told them we are farmers, indicating our houses. One of them beat me using his rifle and pushed me to the hollow space below. He fired and missed me. His superior, who ordered the killing, was watching from a distance.
What does the body part taken from a child called Samrawit indicate?
Her hand was hit by a bullet, but her flesh was cut by a knife. They cut and took the flesh, leaving almost nothing. She has also a broken bone.
In the aftermath of the series of massacres, in a briefing about what he called law enforcement campaign, fascist Abiy Ahmed scornfully said,
Extra care has been made in relation to civilian damage. In no other part of the world. In 3-week battle, in Humera, at Digoshu, in Dansha, in Shiraro, at Dahagarai, at Dawala, at Dinavri'it, at Daro, Shira, Salakhlakha, Aksum, Adwa, at Digrat, Daga Hamus, Zalambessa, and Mekelle. The defense force has not killed a single person in any of the cities. No soldier of any country can be more efficient than this.
In reality, it turned out to be an open genocidal campaign on Tigray and Tigrayans.
Many atrocities have been committed in Tigray. I think this is beyond genocide.
Mothers and teens, including males, have been sexually assaulted.
I ran away with my children, but both forces, the Sha'biya and the Prosperity Amhara, found us. They did what they wished and would send others saying, "If you want a woman, you have a Tigrayan there. Please hurry up and help her get rid of her Tigrayan blood." They abducted us for 2 months. There were 7 of them. There were women who said they have AIDS virus. They were killed.
This baby girl is fathered by them. He said, "Why don't you breastfeed her?" I explained, "I'm pregnant." He blurted, "Is that so? We will examine this infant." Then the Sha'biya, the Eritrean, said, "You Tigrayans don't deserve bullets. We will cut you using knives." He did.
All 23 have raped a single woman, me. When I screamed, they would suffocate me.
In a Tigray hospital, her doctor, George Girme, lays out objects that were removed from the 27-year-old's vagina.
Remove the equipment, like nail, stone, and plastic, and some cotton, and heavy bleeding at this time.
I was gang raped by 5, who later ordered me to bring my husband. When I said that he was not here, they charred my uterus with a heated muzzle.
This is very painful service to us. How can I clarify it?
Mothers were barren. Abiy's troops burned their wombs with fire, put odd things in their private parts, and mocked at them, "There is gold in your womb."
He ordered me to give him gold. When I told him that I don't have any, he ruthlessly tortured me using his rifle. He then put odd things using his hand.
I killed 20. I raped 5.
Tigrayan women have been raped by Eritrean bloodthirsty invaders. Even elderly nuns in their 80s have been raped. They have lost their human and religious dignities.
I was raped by 3 Eritreans. Then they inserted things. I was virgin. I couldn't endure.
A blind mother who depended on alms at church was raped by fascist Abiy Ahmed's soldiers.
While I was sleeping, I heard a knock. Thinking he was a thief, I said, "Who is it?" He then ordered me to open in Amharic. I said, "I can't, I'm blind." He insisted. For fear of being killed, I opened it. He then raped me. He did it by force, without my wish.
Mona Lisa's body was torn apart by a bullet while she was helplessly fighting off a fascist Abiy soldiers who tried to rape her.
They tried to rape me, and I was thrown to the ground. Then one of the soldiers fired bullets to scare me, but they hit my hand and then fired another bullet that went through my arm. I was bleeding for hours. Then I had my arm amputated.
Worst of all, the body of a mother who was brutally shot in western Tigray was raped in front of her 13-year-old daughter.
They killed my mom. Later, they came back, broke the door, and ordered me to go out. I saw them raping her body. I was extremely sad. They were very cruel.
Women were raped. I have observed it in my own eyes. I myself have also done it.
In response to such heinous acts, Abiy Ahmed arrogantly continued to downplay and condone the brutality of the atrocities deliberately committed by the fascist regime and dictatorial regime of Isaias.
The women were raped by men, but our soldiers were raped by knives.
As part of their desire to disown whatever is Tigrayan, the invading Amhara forces and the dictatorial regime of Isaias have been engaged in scrambling, renaming, and reclaiming different territories. Thousands of Amharas and Eritreans were then made settled in what used to be Tigrayan homes, villages, and counties.
We have submitted many things. We have submitted a country, and we have put a flag at the Takaza River Bridge in the presence of the administrator of Mekelle. It was videotaped and submitted to the administrator. We have ordered the local community to get Amhara ID cards. Accordingly, ID cards have been issued, and the place smells like Amhara. It is Amharized.
Properties of Tigrayans were pillaged.
There was non-stop looting of property, including TV sets, matters, gold, money, and so on. I have looted. Others have also looted.
Their health facilities and schools were looted, destroyed, or seriously damaged. Likewise, their factories were dismantled and deliberately destroyed by bombs and grenades.
የመስፍን ኢንዱስትሪያል ኢንጂነሪንግ ኮምፕሌክስ መቀሌ ድረስ በመሄድ አልማራ ጨርቃ ጨርቅና ጋርመንት ፋብሪካ አድዋ ድረስ በመሄድ ከጥቅም ውጪ ያደረጉ ናቸው።
After so doing, parts, goods, and other property were transported northward to Eritrea. Tigrayan farmers' crops and belongings were carted away to all directions. The rest were mixed with soil or ruined in different ways. Their oxen were slaughtered, their farm tools were destroyed, and ore used as a firewood for cooking food. Farmers' plants and perennial trees were chopped and burned. Their religious places were deconsecrated, looted, and bombarded.
From now onwards, it will be hit, be it a church or not.
The treasures and traditions which have been revered for thousands of years have been burned or destroyed. Some of them were stolen and displayed on eBay for sale.
What we've taken is our property.
On June 21, 2021, when the invading forces were defeated in most parts of Tigray and began fleeing to southern and northern parts of Tigray, they attempted to conceal their humiliating defeat on flimsy pretexts by saying,
"We left to allow the people to have time for contemplation.
We left to allow the people to be engaged in agricultural work.
As the people need to plow, as the people cannot work while there is war, we left Mekelle and parts of Tigray. This is one of the reasons.
We left Mekelle looking for a stronghold, for a better preparation. We came so that we would meet with the other units to reorganize through training, evaluation, and leadership, and eventually be ready for another better assignment.
Do you want us to say that we have been defeated?
As if they did the right thing, the leaders said, that have laid siege to Tigray in broad daylight.
The political center will crash. The economic center was hit. The entire infrastructure was crashed. Its forces has been destroyed. It was destroyed or hit. That was the main goal of the war.
When we went 7 or 8 months ago, Mekelle was a focal point. It was a center of the government, a center of resources that we know and we don't. When we leave now after 8 months, it's not different from Bashasha.
When the people of Tigray voted for peace, the invaders who were not content with the atrocities they inflicted on Tigray have plotted to deploy the chance to cleanse Tigrayans. And as per their plan, in Togoga, west of Hagar Salam, civilians were going about their business in an open area were bombed and killed by fascist Abiy Ahmed's warplanes. The wounded victims were deliberately prevented from getting medical services.
After raids, ambulances and assistance are necessary. The ambulances were ready to go there for medical assistance.
We were prevented from going there as we were stopped at a number of checkpoints. We had papers, but they told us that it was not acceptable. We're returning back after 4 or 5 unsuccessful attempts.
They are bleeding. We didn't provide the required services. The people of Tigray are being destroyed.
Here is what was said then.
As our planes have eyes and can effectively detect the armed from the civilians, and as it's also a period of technology, the measure was taken against the forces.
In Malazat, east of Mekelle, more than 25 innocent Tigrayans who were on public transport were killed in drone strikes.
The government is the kind that eats its own wounds. We are its own citizens, its people. We are Ethiopians. Up to now, we are Ethiopians.
IDPs who were forcibly displaced from western Tigray and sheltered at a school in Dedebit were killed by drone attacks at midnight on Christmas Day. The site has nothing to do with the military. The fact that the IDPs from western Tigray were targeted is a good evidence of the deliberate plan to wipe out eyewitnesses from the part of Tigray.
We ran away from death. Here in Dedebit, death awaited us. At midnight, they killed my mom and my brothers. I'm just alone here.
واي 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 علم يلن علم يلن علم تلي منا تعلم تلي منا علم تلي منا هذا علم تلي ما هذا علم تلي ما هذا من قصنا توارسكم يا جير على من قصنا توارسكم واي 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 علامات واي علامات.
In Maitsabri, people who were in a meal were massacred.
These are kids, civilians who came from the countryside to a mill, and they were hit by a drone.
In Alamata, a number of civilians, including residents in the marketplace, were slaughtered in drone strikes at the fringe of the main road.
This is a cursed government. I'm 88. I have never heard or seen such a cursed government. Peoples have been crushed like leaves.
What can I say? Just God give him his prize.
In Qaram, members of the church were killed by a mob drawn during a prayer service. In Churcher and other places, many citizens were killed by bombardments.
Raids on children, on civilians. What does this mean? Is this a government? What is this called? This is a tyrant, a full-blown tyrant. If there are really nations and world leaders who care for human rights, they need to say enough.
In Mekelle, families were killed by aerial bombardment. Body parts of children and women were littered in the leveled houses. More than 17,000 Tigrayan generals, senior and middle-ranking officers, including veterans of the infantry, who have been serving the country and its people, have been imprisoned in a series of concentration camps set up all over the country. Many were summarily executed, and the remaining are still exposed to extreme deprivations, brutality, and an untold agony.
We've seen 20,000 soldiers in the Ethiopian army imprisoned months ago simply because of their Tigrian heritage.
In Benshangul Gumuz, in February 2022, the horrific emulation of Tigrayans highlights the extreme brutality of the massacres. The horrific killing in Sawata, Amhara region, is another sign of their extreme brutality. No words can fully describe the genocidal acts on Tigrayans in the regional state of Afar.
ازنخي بتوت عبسكي بكاندوي بالكن سمالي كيدقم عبقت زامدري تاريخ نعرسون تدقم
To make matters worse, the remains of bodies that were buried in mass graves were dug up, moved to a different location, and destroyed. Such horrendous acts of fascisticide, destruction of evidence, is good evidence of their savagery and their intent. As the complete siege continues all over Tigray, and by implication the people are denied access to all services, health care, food, and other essentials, Tigrayans are dying in mass every day and everywhere in Tigray, and of course in Ethiopia.
With 6 million people under siege, starving to death.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has frequently cut off power
and mobile phone access to the region, we know that the forces allied to the Ethiopian government have damaged and looted health facilities.
It is common for hospitals, clinics, and other health facilities to be overwhelmed with patients of whom most die due to lack of medication. Fascist Ethiopia's authorities have time and again blocked aid from entering Tigray, despite calls for safe corridors and unfettered delivery of humanitarian assistance. The genocidal actions committed on Tigrayans have been exposed by various international media and human rights organizations. However, such attempts are followed by indecorous silence.
For much of the conflict, the United States, the United Nations, and the international community have failed to hold high-level Ethiopian officials to account for their role in atrocities committed in Tigray, and now
Tigrayans have suffered so much in the past few months through famine and conflict.
Over the past few months, conflict in the northern Tigray region has killed thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands more have fled their homes.
Particularly the situation in Tigray, where we are seeing very credible reports of human rights abuses and atrocities that are ongoing.
And note that not only has Antony Blinken called this situation ethnic cleansing, there's deep concern as to whether this could be genocide.
All the hallmarks of genocide as defined by international law.
Do you believe a genocide is underway in the region?
Yes, and I have said so. And as we see a genocide unfolding, we need to do everything we can to stop it, and we need to call it as such.
So that we can all speak with one voice about our commitment to the people in Tigray, so that we can demand together that Prime Minister Abiy bring an end to the suffering in the region.
Tigray should no longer suffer in silence.
If the phrase that we use, never again, is to have any meaning, when a genocide is being committed, it needs to be recognized as such in the moment, not for history, in the moment.
Strong words, but will words be enough when the crimes described bear all the hallmarks of a possible genocide?
Shouldn't the non-stop suffering of teens, agony of mothers, killings and deaths of tens of thousands of Tigrayans, and calls for support of millions others be convincing enough to awaken the world to the never again principle? Is it not time to prevent the same mistakes from being committed over and over and over again in the world? After all, how many of us must lose our lives to convince the world so that it would live up to its commitments? Is it not high time the international community declared the genocide in Tigray? Tigray is indeed the cornerstone of humanity and generations, the birthplace of human dignity and the center of ancient civilization and the land of explorations. Why then are the hurts and the pains of humanity, the agony of Tigray, far and wide, followed by indifference, inattention, and inaction?
I have 5 words for you. Can you hear us? If the United States stands by and does nothing, shame on you.
Shame on you. Shame. Shame for your silence. Shame for your failure to stand up for basic humanity and for all the principles for which the United Nations was founded. Shame on you for your failure to stop starvation. Shame on you for failing to call out those responsible for inflicting it on the innocent.
So we continue to call on Ethiopia and Eritrea to end the blockade, the siege, and allow safe access for humanitarian supplies and workers to save lives.
Now we're hearing countless horrific accounts of rape being used as a weapon of war, of violence against civilians, of hunger being used as a tool of war, of famine looming, of UN staff being expelled. Ethiopians killing Ethiopians, thousands by the day.
If TPLF had decided to stay with the Prosperity Party, it would have saved many of its citizens.
The world must accept the unthinkable genocide of the 21st century. The genocide on Tigray is different in various types and executions from the previous crimes committed in Armenia, Yugoslavia, Rwanda, and in different parts of Europe against the Jews. The world should say loud and clear the Tigray Genocide as unprecedented one in the 21st century.
Shouldn't the international community help us seeing this, my dears? What shall we do? We are starving, despite accepting and enduring the starvation. This is happening. This destruction. Civilians, women, and children were killed here. I don't know, dear. A woman who labors for a living was killed. What is her mistake? Did she wrong the Amhara? Did she wrong the Shabia? Not at all. Not at all.
It's time for action now. It is time for the international community to speak up today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but today. We need action now.
Remember that? Remember? Remember you promised never again? Why doesn't that apply to my family? Where is the world?
تنفاس كندنا مستغبزة كابتي زبال كايو زولر كايو يتألم لولود نخبرها كبرتي قالنا كعالم زي كون الكي انت خوينو زمحال كيون نفرسكي عالم تسوي خمتلا يخونو مبال خونكي عزم سقون تتبس اهتاك من نار أخي عالم لمنتاي تتكتي ازنخي بتوت عبسكي بكاندو يبلكن سمالي كيدقم عبقت زامدري تاريك نعرسون تدقم ريناك الكي انت لقم
TPM أفدق زمناوي تجراي أبي مل علم زلهم دقفتن فتوتن ميديا حزب تجراي TPM بزاقت إلى زلالين كتدعمكم نميدياهم بتخلوا ودقف كتجبروا بتحتنا اللابو أبعد نزلهم دما بزعب قطر حساب دقف نخت جبروا بخبر نسوع نتجبروا كل مدى وحجز أقدمنا نمسكن TPM أفدق زمناوي تجراي
TPM أفدق زمناوي تجراي